Come on, Edward. This way. Yeah. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. I have two pots, one with Nellie inscribed on it and the other with Nigel, so they're special. And I like to plant them up as big statements at this time of year. It'll last me right through till October, and I've got actually a combination which I've not tried before, and the central piece is going to be this. This is a Salvia Amistad. It's kept in the greenhouse over winter. It's quite big, but hopefully not too big for this. I've cut it back. Whoa. And it's heavy. Whoa. There we go. Right. That's like that. Now, if I tease out the soil around the side... Amistad is believed to be a cross between Salvia garanitica and Salvia gesneriflora. It has rich purple flowers, and of all the tender salvias, it's the easiest to grow, flowers longest, is the hardiest, and the most dramatic, I think. So that'll be in the middle. And around the outside, I've got a dahlia. And this is Dahlia David Howard. Now, David Howard has these slightly chocolatey tinged leaves and an orange flower. So you have the purple and the orange, the contrast of the two, real jewel garden colours. Strong, dramatic, and yet will fit in with the flowering of the borders all around them. I'm going to put 3 in, so we'll put 1 there and push it down. I think 3 will be enough because they'll enlarge out. So all I've got to do is backfill around it and the job is done. Now, coming up on today's programme. Adam visits a walled garden in Essex, brought back to life thanks to the tireless dedication of one woman.
What do you think it is that's driven you?
We're between 2 areas of deprivation here, where we've got people with poor diets, low incomes. It's a garden built on love.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Oh, I've gone all gooey now.
Bless you.
I've gone all emotional.
We meet a man who has transformed his barren new-build plot into a haven for plants and nature.
It's a garden that's 4 years old, but actually, hopefully, the appearance that it has is one that's been here for decades, if not longer.
We join Nick as he reveals his ambitious feature garden at Gardener's World Live and explains why he wants to inspire us all to make a metre matter.
Research has shown that dedicating a square metre to growing something green can make a huge difference to you, to your mental health, and to the environment.
And we visit a grower in Leicestershire who is truly potty about peonies.
I call them look at me flowers because I don't think you can walk past a peony without thinking, wow, look at that peony. Of all the flowers in the garden, I think they're the showstopper, they're the queen of flowers, really.
Now this is a first for me because I felt it needed something else. And I didn't really have anything suitable, but then I thought actually the Aeoniums, and I've got loads of cuttings in relatively small pots, would fit and they just might look quite good. So if I put them inside the terracotta pots, just place them in like that, and maybe that one can go there, and that one there. How does that look? Yeah, I think that looks quite good. It's a bit Victorian and a bit Gothic, but why not? Right, I want to put some soil underneath them, but I think in principle, the whole jewel garden's a bit Victorian and a bit Gothic, so I'm doubling down. A little bit of tidying up. When you're planting dahlias and you want them to have lots of flowers, it's a good idea to cut them back at this stage. So this is long and straggly, so I'm going to take that back to that leaf there. So that comes back, and then this one, and then this one. The reason you do this is to encourage side shoots. Take away the leader, you'll get more side shoots, and side shoots will carry more flowers. So they'll be a little bit smaller, but much more floriferous. It's a gritty compost, so it should drain well. I will water it. And I think this, which is a completely new composition for me, might look quite good. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay. This is the cottage garden, although for 25 years, this was the vegetable garden. And then we started to add more and more plants, and particularly roses. And now we have over 100 different roses in here, and this is their moment. June is the month of the rose, and of course, right across the country, everybody is celebrating them. But I know some gardeners get a little bit intimidated by roses. You know, they worry about how to prune them, or whether they got black spot, or whether they got rust or mold or whatever. The thing to remember is these are tough plants. They're a glorified bramble, and all the better for it. But there are certain things that are worth knowing about them. For example, here, we have lots of different types. We have old roses, which include gallicas and damask, and this is a rugosa, and we have centifolias and moss roses. And the great thing about the old roses is they can all be pruned in the same way. Take this. This is a gallica. It's not flowering yet, masses of buds. I cut this with shears last September. I just clipped it over. And then in February, I just went through it with a pair of secateurs, taking off anything that was damaged or actively crossing and rubbing. That's it. You don't have to worry about anything other than that. If you want it to be a bit smaller, you cut it down harder. If you want it to be a nice big shrub, you leave it a bit. But fundamentally, that's all you have to do. If you get black spot, it's probably because it's a bit too wet. The air is too moist, and very often there's not much you can do about that. If you get powdery mildew, it's because it's too dry, and you can water them. Sometimes you get both. You get dry at the base, wet at the top, and it's a double whammy. But the flowers are usually good all the same. There are also a huge number of modern roses available, like this, which is a shrub that now acts as a climber, Crown Princess Margarita. It's yellow, flush with a sort of apricot-y orange. The modern English roses are a fantastic addition to anybody's rose garden. But as well as having a fantastic choice, the real advantage of them is that they flower for longer than the old roses. Some of them will flower from the middle of May right through till November. Many others will have a long period of about 2 months, a bit of a rest, and then come back in late summer and autumn. But either way, they all flower for longer than the old roses, which tend to just have a very brief season of about 6 weeks, 2 months at the most. But it does mean you need to underplant and companion plant alongside them, and that's what I'm doing now. Now, the underplanting that we've had in spring is dominated by a mixture of forget-me-nots and tulips. Well, the tulips have gone, died back, and the forget-me-nots are in the process of dying back. So what I do is, over a course of about 10 days, start to remove the spent forget-me-nots and replace them. We're pretty ruthless about it. Just pull at them, they come out easily, like this. And what we're doing, of course, is creating space. I'm going to put some geraniums in. This is one I've never planted before, but I've admired it. I'm really happy to have it in the garden. It's called Vision Light Pink. You can also get Vision Pink, which is just slightly darker. Very nice foliage, delicate flowers, pink. Remember, the colour scheme here in the cottage garden are soft pastels, dominated by pinks of every hue, so it completely fits in with that. This will accompany the roses, and then as the roses die back, which these are all gallicas here, and they will, By the middle of July, there'll be hardly any flowers at all on here, but these will still be flowering. So I'm going to put one in there. So this can go in here, and I can add to it. In a few days' time, as that blue is lost, I can take those out and then put more in. And as long as they get some sunshine, they'll be fine. The great thing about hardy geraniums is that word hardy. Not only will they resist any amount of cold or bad weather, but also they're incredibly adaptable. They grow in full sun, they grow in full shade, they grow in a mixture of both. So this will be very happy here. Okay, that's good. I'll add more in as we go along here. And it's all part of accompanying roses. Roses are still dominating the garden, and they will do, joyfully, for the next few weeks. But I'm planning for the future and accompanying them so that when they do fade, there'll be still a really good display. Now, last summer, last July, Adam went to visit a wall garden in Essex that has been transformed.
Just a few miles from Romford town centre in Essex is a hidden gem. Bedfords Park walled garden, created in the 1700s to serve as a kitchen garden for the estate. In more recent years, the garden was used by a local nursery until it was shut down in 2000.
This is a garden that seems to have had more lives than a cat. But now it's under the guidance of some enthusiastic locals. And looking at it, they've worked a miracle.
This 1.5 acre plot has an abundance of vegetables. An orchard of heritage apples and glorious cut flowers. But it's no mean feat looking after a place like this. At the helm is retired horticultural lecturer Lois Amos.
Lois?
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you very much. What do you think of those then, Adam?
Hey, look at those. They look incredible.
Aren't they lovely?
They do, don't they? Walking straight in, a bit special, isn't it?
Well, I used to be placing apprentices here
Yeah.
for work experience.
Yeah.
So I knew it when it was a borough nursery.
Yeah.
And it was fully stocked with plants. Then they closed the nursery, had no more use for it. And they literally just locked the gates. I mean, there were still plants in the cold frames and in the glass houses. I was devastated.
Wow.
It's such a lovely garden. And I just remember getting in the car and crying all the way out the park.
Bless you.
Sadly, the garden fell into disrepair and Lois fought for 11 years to save it.
It took a long time because everybody thought I was completely balmy.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they had a point.
Yes, I suppose so. Yes, I suppose so. But I don't think there was anybody else balmy enough to try and take it on.
So when you guys first sort of got involved in this, totally and utterly overgrown?
Absolutely. You couldn't see from one end to the other. There was nothing growing. And I just went for it, really.
And you managed to get some people to support you and some funding for the project?
Yes.
What do you think it is that's driven you?
I love to see people enjoying nature and growing, and we're between two areas of deprivation here where we've got people with poor diets, low incomes, and the aim really was to produce food that's healthy and also to teach them what to do with it. All of that sort of thing. You know, it just spurs you on. It's a garden built on love.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody's had a part in it.
So far, Lois has inspired 22 volunteers to help transform the garden. And today, I'm joining them. Maxine needs a hand with some pruning.
Maxine?
Hi there.
You all right?
Yes.
Lois has sent me to help you.
Very welcome. We have a lot
How's it going?
of the piece here goes all the way up to the fruit cages on both sides, so it's a labour of love.
So what we do, just cutting out the old growth?
So we're cutting out the old growth, letting the new growth come through.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good, tough plant.
It's very reliable.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful, blooms twice a year.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
No,
Have it in
exactly.
a big place like this.
So how long have you been coming up here and playing your part?
So I discovered the garden last year. I get very excited. I come to the garden on the way here. What's going to be out this week? What are we going to be doing? What are we going to be sowing and planting? It's lovely. It's lovely, and there's always something new going on.
The benefits of having a place like this on your doorstep are huge. Locals can come here for their fruit and veg, be close to nature and make friends. Pam has been coming here for 8 years.
It's got a great feel about the place, hasn't it?
I think it's absolutely wonderful, and it's done so much for me. In fact, the garden's probably done more for me than I've done for the garden. I just love being here. Chemo has knocked the stuffing out of me, and I just like walking around, meeting up with the people, and just being here.
Yeah.
This is my garden.
Yeah.
And it'll always be my garden.
Yeah. That's magical, isn't it? It's not just about the garden, it's about the people that are involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Faye has spent the last few years creating the wonderful herb garden.
Faye, you walk straight in here, you get a lovely waft of what? Rosemary, mints.
Lemon balm.
Lemon balm.
Yeah, we've got lemon balm growing. Obviously, we've got our big row of lavender. One of my favourite herbs, I think, is the English mace. It used to be used in puddings, not really used as a herb very much now. It's really nice to know that, obviously, this place is back to what it was.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you're working in a garden and continuing on that process, it's just a really nice feeling.
This garden has a really special feel to it. Everyone here seems so at peace and happy to be here, including me.
Lois, you have got an amazing group of volunteers, haven't you?
Yes.
They seem to have the same passion about the place as you have.
Yes, I've infected them with it.
What, yeah? Probably have injected them, though, yeah.
We try to instil into everybody that this is a very historic setting and that these types of places need protection and conservation, and, you know, they need using and loving.
I couldn't put it better. You've just given me goosebumps, girl. You have, honestly. It's like, I think, in a way, it's that sense of legacy. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
Bless you.
thank you.
No.
I've gone all gooey now.
Bless you.
I've gone all emotional.
I didn't mean to do that.
Well done.
When you think about it, every single big house in the country, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, had a walled garden. And during my childhood, they nearly all went into disrepair, and no one could afford to use them, and they weren't relevant anymore. So I think it's fantastic to see how many are being used like that one for a variety of reasons, but very often they're community projects, growing lots of food, which of course is exactly what they were intended for. Now, what I'm doing here is adding quite a lot of compost underneath these supports because I'm about to plant some squashes and pumpkins in the greenhouse. Now, pumpkins and squashes are really heavy feeders. And what all that means in practice is that they will use and consume and benefit from any feed that you give them. The more you feed them, the more you water them, the happier they'll be. So, lots of extra compost. I normally grow squashes and pumpkins outside, but they love heat and sun. And the hotter the summer, the better they'll be. So very often, they're a bit iffy if we have a bad summer. Whereas in a greenhouse, they should be great. So I'm going to give them a go. So I'm going to grow some in here, some outside, and I'll compare the two. The selection I've got is I've got a butternut, Waltham butternut, which is really good. I've got Rouge d'Étang, which is an old favourite of mine, and Crown Prince, which is a really good eater, and it's actually pretty reliable. If you're going to grow just one squash, go for Crown Prince. It's worth noticing that my potted plants, particularly if they've been in the pot for a while, invariably have weeds growing in them. And that is because I always add soil and garden compost to my potting mix. And there are some weed seeds in it. But it's no trouble at all to weed them out. And to me, it's a sign of health. Right, let's start planting. When you're planting them, the normal advice is to make a saucer around them so that you can water them really thoroughly and the water doesn't run off. In here, I'm not too worried about that because the nature of being in a greenhouse means they will get watered. They don't need to be too deep. Just plant them up to the soil level. And this plant that looks pretty insignificant will become very big. If you left it, it would spread right across. And if you're planting outside on the ground, you need at least 1 metre square around each plant. That's where the supports come in, because all its growth is going to go up. But the beauty of growing them up means that you can have the spacing so much closer. And that means you can grow more plants in a smaller area, and that means you're going to get more bang for your buck. Now, this is Rouge d'Étang, which technically is a pumpkin, whereas the butternuts are squashes. I say technically because in practice, it doesn't make much difference. One will have a thicker skin and therefore will store better. By and large, pumpkins store better. And to put into context, here we are now in June, and I've still got a couple of pumpkins left over from last year, Turk's Turban there, which are fine, and we've stored right through winter. So if you keep them right, this is a harvest that will see you through all the winter months and into next spring. Keep them very well watered. If it's really hot, I'll water these most days. I would think that you'd start to see fruits forming in about 6 weeks' time, and the harvest should be September. Now, increasing number of people are buying new build houses, moving into them with a plot that is genuinely bare, very often compacted, filled with rubble, and quite daunting when you set out to make a garden. But it can be done. And we went to visit Andrew Jackson in Beverley in his new build house to see how he had turned that bare plot into a magical garden.
We bought our property off plan, so it was just a kind of picture in a brochure. We got to choose the plot itself. Because we were quite early on, I did deliberately choose the one with kind of the most interesting shaped garden at the time. Garden's a bit of an exaggeration, but the one that looked like it got the most interesting shape. I had absolutely zero gardening experience. It's fair to say that there was a lot to learn. There was absolutely nothing here. It was just a lot of compacted building rubble. So actually the soil quality was the #1 issue that we had to deal with immediately. We did lots of things from aerating the soil manually to using all sorts of different compost and organic matter to just improve it. And I think that's the key, really. Every time I see a worm, I think, oh, actually, that's a fantastic thing. So the design really started actually as a kind of privacy thing. So we're overlooked, as a lot of new build houses are, by an awful lot of other properties. So we started with the kind of tree screening element. These Cotoneaster cornubia, which we bought at 6 feet tall, which you would think might be really expensive plants, but they only cost about £60 each, and they've decided to turn themselves into multi-stem trees, which really helped, I think, in just giving some of that privacy to the garden. And then really it was around building up the bones and the structure of it. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of flowering shrubs. And then really it was around filling in the spaces and actually trying to use colours and themes that worked together. And then obviously we've put the pond in, which I think is one of the key features of the garden. Every garden needs a water source, but I wanted this one to look really naturalistic so that it blended in with the landscape. The things you can plant around ponds are completely different to that you can plant out in the normal borders. So it actually opens up a whole new world of opportunities in terms of the stuff that you can do and the different things that you can plant. The best thing anyone says to me about the garden is that it looks like it's been here forever. And that's kind of the style and the design that I've gone for, is that it's a garden that's 4 years old. But actually, hopefully, the appearance that it has is one that's been here for decades, if not longer. Well, I'd never say there was too much in the garden, but some days I sort of think maybe I should be less ambitious. I think it's now got to a point of almost maturity, and my next challenge, I think, is knowing where to start cutting back. Actually, you know, I've let things grow really freely over the last 4 years to give that look of maturity. But as a gardener, I know, you know, for things to look really good, you've got to make some clinical decisions sometimes when you do that. So, yeah, I think cutting back is going to be one of those challenges, and knowing just where and when to do that without losing that sort of naturalistic feel. Sometimes there's a little bit of controversy over new build homes and their impact on the environment. This land was arable farming land before, so I think what we've done here is actually create more biodiversity actually than was here previously, which, you know, is something I'm incredibly passionate about, in that, you know, we've taken away from nature by building a house on their space. So I think there's a responsibility actually to try and help them along and give them a space that actually they can really value. The UK today is about 200,000 new homes a year being built, and the government's got a target of 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years. So I think there is an onus on us as a homeowners group to give back a little bit. If everyone in every single one of those homes does one thing, that will make a huge impact actually on the future of nature and our country. Like a lot of gardeners, I mean, I come out here and often see things that need fixing and problems that need solving, but I think when I do give myself the minute to kind of sit and reflect, I do think, you know, what a huge thing we've done over such a short space of time, which is really nice. My perspective on the world has completely changed from becoming a gardener. It's genuinely changed how I look at things. And you know, if I could do one thing, I just want to kind of bottle up that feeling that the garden gives me and give it to everybody else, because it's genuinely just incredible.
So often on those new build gardens, the compaction is terrible and there's all kinds of rubbish, often beneath a layer of thin topsoil or even some turf. But boy, has Andrew made it work. Now, the writing garden here works in phases. It looks really good for a week or two and then looks a bit scruffy, which is where we are now. And I've learnt over the years that in order to maintain the feel I want from it and the look of the plants, I constantly have to refresh it. Every month or so, I need to cut back, add new plants, just keep refreshing the way it looks in order that it can stay much the same. Now, one of the good examples is this. This is a lilac. Fantastic when it's in flower, lovely white flowers, beautiful fragrance, but you can see once the flowers go over, it's a disaster. The fading flowers just leap out at you in the eye and they're terrible. Now, what I'm going to do is prune it. but I'm not just going to take the flowers off. I'm going to coppice it back really hard. That will encourage new growth, and lilacs flower on new growth. So it will flower next year, but it'll be much lower. We'll have more shoots, more single flower heads, bigger flowers, not so many, at about that height. So this time of year, any early flowering shrub, like lilac, now is the time to prune if you're going to. Right. Now, this is obviously really radical. You do not need to do this every year. You don't need to prune lilac at all, but just bear in mind the flowers will get taller and taller and taller. But you can do this every 5 to 10 years, reinvigorate it. I will clear around it, all this will come out for about a foot or two around it, mulch it very heavily, give it a good water. In other words, give it a boost. And that boost should produce healthy new shoots, which will flower next year. This way, come on. Go on. What I'm doing is I'm clearing the Aeoniums to create space. Remember, over last winter, we cleared out almost everything from the jewel garden. The idea being to give it a complete revamp. Now, we didn't take out the Aeoniums while they were flowering, even though they were a weed, because they look good. But now they're going over, it's time to move on to the next phase. And I've got some perennial plants salvaged from the jewel garden from last year, and I've got a whole batch of annuals to go around them. And what I've got here are some baptisia. You can just see the beginnings of the blue flowers of that. So we'll just for a moment pop that down. It's not necessary we're going to put it. Now, let's put one in the front. Now I like a group of 3. So I've got a Nymphophia there. But if I put that like that, that will give a really good display like that. This is Cosmea lucifer, really strong red. So we've got the sapphire of the baptisia and the ruby of lucifer. Baptisia like that. What I did was gather up a load of corms, so they were all loose, potted them up, so hopefully they develop roots by now, so I can plant them out. I think in here would be good. So what I have is towards the front, what we should do about this sort of height, the baptisia, the lucifer coming up, the red shining out. I've got Rebecca here, which will grow up as tall as that. So that leaves me room in this space to start placing some of the annuals around them. But first of all, it's important, once you've placed your perennials, to plant them. Right, that's this little batch of perennials in the ground. And it is important to get the sequence right. Start off with your woody shrubs and trees, if you've got any in the border, then your herbaceous perennials, and then, depending on the time of year, your annuals or your bulbs or both. This is a sunflower called Claret, and I love the reddy, marmalade-y, brown colours you can get with sunflowers, just as much as the traditional yellow sunflower. And here in the jewel garden, they tend to work better. Now, these are not giant sunflowers, but they will be 6 to 8 foot tall, so they don't want to be right at the edge. Next up, a different type of sunflower, Mexican sunflower, Tithonia. Now, these are one of my favourite annuals for the jewel garden. This is a variety called Tithonia Torch. Bright orange, intense orange colour. Water everything in really well. Give it a good soak, even if it's raining. And especially in a year like this, when we had the driest spring for 69 years. So give it a good soak. I then never water again. Once things are in the soil and they're watered, they look after themselves, and they will. They will find the water. Whereas if you keep watering, particularly if you water lightly, the roots will stay near the surface and they will be more prone to drought because you're watering more often than if you just let them get deep and find that moisture, and they'll survive. We are going to join Nick now as he prepares for his show garden that he's going to be revealing to all of us at Gardeners World Live. And that is going to contain a really strong message about making every metre matter.
This little area doesn't look very big, but in fact it is 1 square metre. And research has shown that dedicating a square metre to growing something green can make a huge difference to you, to your mental health, and to the environment. Now, when I was asked to create the headline garden for Gardeners World Live, I was really excited at the opportunity to be able to show off some of the different ways that you can make metre matter in your garden. So you could dedicate 1 square metre to being a compost heap. It could be a pollinator patch, or it could be purely ornamental. And no matter what size your garden is, from a balcony to a sprawling space, now imagine if everybody in the UK did that. That would really make a huge difference. Now, of course, the garden I'm creating isn't just 1 square metre. In fact, it's 196 square metres, so that's a plot of approximately 14 by 14 metres. So, looking across the site, I've got raised square metre beds dedicated to veg. There are individual ponds, which are each a square metre. There is the square metre elevated multi-occupancy birdhouse. So I'm hoping there's a whole load of inspiration and different ideas that people can take away and try at home. But the idea here is that it isn't just the planting, it's also the hard landscape that's made of plants. So with a combination of western red cedar, with cork, with bamboo, and with clay bricks, we've basically managed to create all of the garden, avoiding using any concrete, any metal, any glass, or any plastic. Most of the plants are being grown for me, but I am raising some myself. I've roughly split the show garden in half, so 50% of it's ornamental and 50% of it is edible and useful. There's veg coming on well with lots of brassicas. And then I've got a whole load of nasturtiums or tropiolum, which are going to grow in the edges of those kind of raised beds and pour over and just give that sort of sense of abundance. And then finally, just up here, I've got these tumbling tomatoes, and I'm absolutely thrilled to say, by giving them loads of heat, loads of light, managed to get them into fruit. So all of these plants are nearly at a state of readiness and will make their way over to Birmingham, ready to be installed in the show garden. I'm growing these sunflowers, which are going to go on the edible side of the garden, essentially because I'm growing them for their seeds, which of course yield oil. But of course it's an ornamental plant as well, so it could equally go on to the other side of the garden. And incidentally, there's 2 plants I'm really looking forward to seeing growing over there. One of them is a bearded iris called Kent Pride. That has a beautiful kind of gingery pickety edge just creeping in. And then the key sort of continuity plant that's running all the way through is Geum Totally Tangerine. It has those wonderful, vibrant, semi-double flowers, and it really should pull the garden together as one complete entity, I hope. It's so important for this show garden that I source the elements sustainably. So I'm roping in local friends. Just up the road is willow weaver Sue Kirk, grows her own willow. She's creating a large urn that will form a key focal element in the design. Oh, Sue, this looks absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I love the different colour tones. Is there a particular cultivar you've used?
Yeah, so the cultivar is Brittany Blue, and the species is Salix purpurea with Daphnoides.
So it's a cross.
Yeah. It's a great willow. It comes up beautifully when you soak it. We allow them to dry out. That takes about 6 months. And then once we want to make an item with them, we select the rods from the bundles and we re-soak them in water for roughly between 2 to 3 weeks to make them flexible again.
So I have to say, I feel like this kind of embodies everything I've been trying to do with the garden. It's truly sustainable and, yeah, I think it absolutely ticks every box. As well as making every metre matter, I wanted the show garden to be accessible from all 4 sides. The centrepiece is a collection of buildings which can be seen from any direction, and that inspiration came from somewhere equally local. In fact, the streetscape I'm looking at right now in a village very close to me. And I've literally replicated it with the juxtaposition of these buildings and the fact that there are a series of chimneys rising out of these buildings in the distance that are square and cuboid, and they look exactly like my multi-occupancy birdhouse. And so inspiration can strike you in all sorts of different ways. This one surprised me, but I think it works. Right now, this show garden only exists in my brain and on a few bits of paper, but myself and the landscape team and our fantastic planters have got the challenge of pulling it all together and turning it into reality on site. There are so many different things that could go horribly wrong, but one has to trust in the process. I've done this a few times before, and hopefully at the end of it all, we'll wind up with a fabulous garden. And my biggest hope is that it will leave a whole load of visitors to the show, inspired and going home, buzzing with ideas they can try in their own gardens.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing the finished garden and won't have to wait long because we can all enjoy it in a week's time at Gardeners World Live, which is from the 12th to the 15th. I'll be there along with lots of other members of the team, so I hope you'll be there too. Come on in. Good boy. This way, yeah. Good boy. Good boy. A few weeks ago, I planted out tomatoes in the big greenhouse, and they're set now and growing. But I kept some back deliberately to grow them outside. Now, growing tomatoes outside is a completely reasonable thing to do, but you just have to manage your expectations. They won't grow and ripen as quickly as they will in a greenhouse. They will have a smaller harvest, and unless it's a nice hot summer, they may not be quite as good. However, that's all the negative side. The plus side is they will definitely grow, they will definitely ripen, and they will definitely taste better than anything you can buy. So if you don't have a greenhouse, you can still grow tomatoes. This is a variety called Gardener's Delight. And some varieties are much better suited to growing outside in a British summer than others. So Gardener's Delight, Shirley is another one that grows well outside. But Gardener's Delight is a good place to start. So you can see these have grown well, nice root system. Actually, what's interesting, these have been outside for a few days hardening off, had a good water. It's only sunk in, what, ½ an inch? At this time of year, when you're watering anything in a pot, soak it, really soak it. You could plant this perfectly well up to the depth of my finger without doing any harm at all. And that would anchor it, and you would also get roots growing off the side of the stem. So always plant them deep. You'll notice that all these plants are looking slightly jaded. The green is a bit pale, they've got some yellow leaves, and that's simply because they've outgrown the nutrition that's in their pots. Don't worry about it. Tomatoes are actually very robust plants. They will recover quickly, and within a week or so, this will be all the new growth will have lots of fresh, vibrant green, but they will need support. The staking does want to be quite robust because a laden tomato at full height is going to be quite heavy and can flop and fall. So get the thickest bamboos you can. Having staked them, you must regularly tie them in. There's no point in having a stake if you don't attach the plant to it. And then they should be fine. They really shouldn't need feeding unless they're showing clear signs of distress. And above all, hope for sun, because it's sun that makes a good tomato. While I'm doing this, in the rain, we're going to visit Eleanor Tivy on her peony patch, and it's some patch, in Leicestershire.
I call them look at me flowers because I don't think you can walk past a peony without thinking, wow, look at that peony. Of all the flowers in the garden, I think they're the showstopper, they're the queen of flowers, really. My name's Eleanor, and this is my field of peonies. I adore this field. It's a great place to spend my time. I can't get enough of them. So when I ran out of space in my back garden, I rented some land and decided to start a peony farm. I now grow 12 varieties, which I sell as cut flowers. There's over 7,500 different cultivars of herbaceous perennial peonies, and each of those is different, and they all have different growing habits. I do tend to think of them as my girls here in the field. Each of them have their own personality, but they are very feminine. You know, their ruffles, their frills. But don't be fooled. They may look delicate, but peonies are really robust. I'd even call them hardcore. They're originally from China and Japan and have really, really good tolerance to cold weather. I don't ever have to be afraid during the winter time. It can get cold, it can snow, and I know that they're going to be perfectly fine. According to folklore, the colder the winter, the bigger the flowers. I think the peonies have got a bit of a bad reputation for being a bit of a diva, but they just need 3 very important things, and they should thrive for you. You really shouldn't plant them too deeply. They won't flower unless you've got them quite near to the surface, only an inch of soil over your crown, as we call them. You shouldn't really mulch peonies. They need to be able to feel the temperature, and they must be in well-drained soil. You have to make sure that the crowns themselves do not sit in wet, because that is what will kill a peony. I grow the doubles and the bomb form and the semi-doubles. So this one here is a Lactiflora peony. This one is called Monsieur Jules Elie. It's a beautiful rose pink bomb form peony. And they're called a bomb because they have this huge mass of what are actually modified stamens that have become petals within a set of what we call guard petals, which are larger outer petals. And this one starts as a very dark pink in bud, where the guard petals are protecting these large stamens. And then as it fades out, you'll see it fades into this beautiful soft pink. This one's highly scented with a lovely rose scent. I recommend growing this one. Some peonies are more highly scented than others, and some of them have got the most beautiful scent. This one in particular is called Gardenia, and not only is it a beautiful double with these blush outers here, but it smells of gardenias. which is a fabulous, almost linen fresh scent. Absolutely gorgeous in the vase. So this one is a semi-double because it has an open centre. It has a ring of petals, which are a ruffle, but it gives an open centre where you can see the stamens there. Much better for pollinators as they can reach the inside of the flower much easier. This one's called Coral Charm, and I love this one because it's different from a lot of other peonies in that it fades in the vase. So once you've cut it and it starts in this beautiful, bright orange peach colour, it will fade from that into a soft apricot, and as it opens, it can even turn white. Hello, Bumbler. Sometimes you can be working in the field and you can hear one who's got stuck and is buzzing away trying to escape from all these fluffy ruffles. It's quite cute. Just look at the size of her. This one is Katerina Fontaine. She's a full double, absolutely gorgeous, sumptuous in all her petals, each different in pink and white across this massive, massive flower head. The great thing about doubles is they're quite slow to open when you cut them, but they also last brilliantly in the vase. The bomb forms tend to explode all their petals after about 7 days. These ones you'll get 10 days from in the vase. To see them in the field all dancing in the breeze with their beautiful ruffles, they are like ballerinas, and I think they're just absolutely mesmerising. Some peonies, not all of them, will produce more than one flower on a stem, and these are called side buds, and these will open after the main flower has opened and died away. They will be much smaller than the main flower. So if you really want to put all the energy into this one, what we call a king flower, you can remove these side buds by just taking hold of the side bud and just dropping it down, and it will snap away easily, giving you a nice clean stem, and you've got all the energy going up into this main flower now, which will give you a really big bloom. Now this one will come out a bomb form, this one Angel Cheeks, but what happens is when this one will come out further is you will get this beautiful creamy stamens here that will make it look like a scoop of ice cream, and again beautifully scented. Absolutely lovely variety. It can really lift your mood when you first enter the field and see all the flowers bobbling about in the wind. What a privilege to be able to walk amongst so many of them, all flowering away. Yeah, I just think they're fantastic. I love them.
Lie down. That's a good boy. You would be amazed at how often I'm asked that question of why aren't my peonies flowering? But as Eleanor pointed out, and it's worth repeating, herbaceous peonies should be planted shallow. If you bury them too deep, they will not flower. Ideally, the crown is level with the surface of the soil, and don't mulch over the top of the crown either, because that buries it too. If you plant them level with the surface of the soil, they will flower freely and last for years and years and be lovely every single time. Now, I am pruning back the vine here. This is Black Hamburg. It's a dessert grape, and I have learnt over the years to be ruthless. The reason for that is that you can have 100, 200 bunches of grapes in here, none of which ripen properly. And even if they did, who's going to eat 200 bunches of grapes within about a month or so that they ripen? So it's worth cutting it back to maybe 20, 30, 40 bunches at most of really good grapes that have lots of light, all that energy going into them, and so that they are at their very best. And that means pruning them now. So, for example, I've pruned that off. Well, you can see it's a lovely bunch of grapes, but I don't need it. It's too high up. I try and restrict it so I just have, ideally, a bunch coming off each spur, but certainly no more than 2. But if you don't have grapes, here are some other jobs for you this weekend. Now is a good time to sow French beans direct into the warm soil. Grow them in rows about 9 to 12 inches apart and space each bean along the rows a couple of inches apart. Press them into well-prepared soil, cover them over lightly, and they should germinate and start to appear in a couple of weeks' time. I like to sprinkle radish seed over the top. These will germinate in days and be ready to harvest before they're competing with the beans. Comfrey flowers are lovely, but when comfrey takes hold, it can be invasive. However, a really good use for it is to make a liquid tea. Cut it, leaves, stems and all, and chop them up, cramming as much as you can into a bucket. Then top this up with water and put it to one side. It will smell disgusting, but hang on, because in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, this can be drained off and is the basis, when diluted, for a really nutritious liquid feed. Now is a good time to sow biennials like these foxgloves, and you could also do wallflowers or forget-me-nots, and they will flower next spring. Sprinkle the seed thinly on a tray of compost, cover them lightly, and soak them in a tray of water. They don't need any extra heat to germinate, and the seedlings should appear in a few weeks' time. I talked earlier about the roses in the cottage garden, which are mainly shrub roses, although there are a few climbers as well. Well, this is another kind of rose. This is a rambler. I have ramblers growing on most of the apple trees here in the orchard. And ramblers have 2 differences to climbers. The first is they tend to have lots of small flowers, only flowering once. The earliest will be the end of May and the latest the end of July, but most of them in June and July. When they're finished flowering, that's it. The other thing about them is that ramblers produce their flowers on the previous season's growth, whereas climbers do it on the current season's growth. So if you prune a rambler in spring, you'll have no flowers. The time to prune them is immediately after flowering in midsummer. But to be honest, they don't need it, and they look lovely, just sprawling, unpruned and free. Well, that's it for this week. And next week, we will be at Gardener's World Live. So join us there. Bye-bye.